Oh, Dustin, your face came up first. That's not good. Welcome in, wrestling fans. This, if you're staying with us here, this is the fourth podcast of the day for yours truly. Been repping Rutgers wrestling all day. Been getting a lot of comments on that. A lot of people are like, "What the hell? Why you like Rutgers so much?" I love Rutgers. Shout out Rutgers. Their staff is I love those guys. Coach Pollard, former Coach Kiss, and Goody as well. Just good folks. Steve Minich, not a bad guy. I like him. He and I have friendly banter a lot together. Just spent a lot of weeks.
I didn't realize we were on the NJ Power Hour here. This is awesome.
The what now?
The NJ Power Hour for New Jersey.
It's not New Jersey. I mean, look, say what you will about Jersey, and trust me, I'll say a lot about Jersey. They can't drive. They're just, they talk funny sometimes. There's, they have a different sense of style than I do, but I love those guys. I love those guys a lot. So, Dustin, I also love you, and I love that you joined me here at 10 o'clock, 10:20 here on the East Coast. We're doing a little late night podcasting here on the PA Power Hour show ×4, and we're going to start with 152 and go all the way through until the heavyweights. We already did Double-A, myself, Paul Myers, and Mitch Rupert. And then if you were just listening, Greg Warnock and myself, we just did the 107 through 145 preview. We got Dustin Hockensmith here with us. He was just doing a podcast. What was that, yesterday with Dave Heckard, or was that today?
I mean, it all blurs together at this point, but we did two yesterday. Monday. Dave and I did a AAA full breakdown, just kind of from a District 3 perspective, and then we also did a little free-for-all, which went off the rails with Matt Repos from Central Dolphin and Dom Frontino from Shippensburg, who I think.
How did it go off the rails? How did
it got a little loopy. It got a little loopy towards the end.
Well, I'm a little loopy myself. I'm a little podcast out here. This is This is 6. This is hour number 5 or 6 for me. So, without ado, let's jump right into it, Dustin, shall we?
Yes.
152 pounds. So right out of the gate, we got Ty Waters returning state champ, and what has he not done this year, other than not winning a Super 32 title, which he was second? He has been absolutely lights out, undefeated. Every tournament he's entered, he's won, including the Powerade tournament, including the Southwest Regional tournament, where he just dominated a really tough Lucas Capusta, who comes in ranked number 4 in the state, and he pinned him and made it look easy, right?
Yeah.
In the words of Ty Waters, he's a dog. He's 100% a dog. But then you have, just sprinkled in here, we got a journeyman like Michael Dugan, who has finished 3rd in the state. Yes, they were in Double-A, but he's finished 3rd in the state twice already. I really like Michael Dugan. I like his pace, like his style. We have Kelly Kakos from Perkiomen Valley, who is a 2-time state medalist. Now, he's banged up, and he's not the same Kelly Kakos as last year, but that's likely to see a Kelly Kakos and Ty Waters first-round matchup if Kakos can get by James Geiger from Easton. So I really like the top half. The match that I have circled is a rematch from the King of the Mountain at Sam Gotro from Owen J. Roberts and Gabe Belga from Cumberland Valley. This one's a big-time matchup because last time they wrestled, it was in sudden victory. It was a 4-2 win for Gotro of OJR. And Gabe Belga has been wrestling well. You know that. You've watched him. He's been wrestling well as of late.
Yeah, he's looked really good this postseason. I think he's got a pretty good perspective on this just being it for him, and not only that, but Gabe Belga is a repeat customer at 152 pounds in District 3, which once again had 5 really good guys, and one of them had to go home. And last year it was Belga, this year was not Belga. So I think he's got a good perspective on his wrestling. He's wrestling well. He wrestles real physical style and tries to get in your face. And that formula, I think, I don't want to say it's rare, but it's not common, I think, now. So it can be a matchup problem, but I'm really intrigued by that matchup there. Went into sudden victory once before. Really wouldn't be surprised if it goes into sudden victory again. And, I think all bets are off. Really love Dagan Condomiti down there, but I think if somebody wins that match and gets a little head of steam going, who knows what can happen from there.
Yeah, I mean, there's just landmines everywhere, Dustin. I mean, you look
Yeah.
at the bracket, and I'll kind of go piggyback off of what you said about Belga and Gotro. It's just, he Sam Gautreau has been wrestling lights out too. I mean, he's been just dominating guys. I mean, you look at some of his results from this year. I mean, this is a guy. Now, let's not forget, this is a guy who has not made it to a state tournament before. This is going to be his first state tournament. Probably one of the most improved wrestlers of the of the season across the state. He has a win over Michael Dugan, beat him 5-1 at Escape, or no, that was My House Trojan Wars, and beat Keikos, beat him up pretty good. And Keikos, we know how good he is and how talented he is. Got a Tech Fall in the regional finals. If you're Tech Falling dudes in the regional finals, you're pretty solid. So I agree that him and Belga will be a really good first round matchup. I also like the Michael Dugan and Artis Simmons match. That's an 11 versus a 14. Dugan, I think, should win that one, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer. And I mean, there's no one. I don't think there's anyone that's touching Ty Waters. I just don't. I don't see that happening. I don't think
But
anyone's on his level.
that's the only thing that's clear about this weight class, really, to me. And I like Ryan Garvik from Central Dauphin as the second best guy, but I just don't know if there's a big gap between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and the whole way down. Even as you're talking about Michael Dugan at 11, Griffin Gonzalez was a 7th place medalist
Yeah.
last year from Lebanon. He's sitting there at 12. I mean, there's a lot of craziness that can happen here, not because it's top heavy, but because it is very scattered, and there are really, really good guys who I just don't know, like from one day to the next, if I would say is a favorite over another guy. So I think there's a lot of parity at this weight
Oh,
statewide.
there's a ton of parity, Dustin. You hit the nail on the head there. And I'll give you an example. You look at Bodie Marlowe from Thomas Jefferson. He was right there with Lucas Capusta. It was an ultimate. I think it was an ultimate. It was definitely a tiebreaker match. Marlowe, if he beats Gavin Cole, which I don't want to wrestle anyone from Council Rock South. They're just well coached. They're tough ass kids. But I think Marlowe wins that one. Marlowe and Garvik is going to be a really good match. And don't be
agree.
surprised if Marlowe upsets Ryan Garvik. He's a bad matchup style for Garvik. And he's just, I don't know. I like Marlowe. I really like Garvik, and I always, I'm not saying I always underestimate Garvik, but I don't know. I sometimes I feel like he's due for one, but he wrestled so well here last year that it's hard for me to pick against him. So I am going to go with Garvik, but just keep an eye on that one. That's a number 2 versus number 9. I like Jake Daly over Borzo from Quakertown. I think Jake Daly is another one who's just really come on to his own in his second year now at Becca as a junior, but after spending a year at Wyman Seminary. The best quarterfinal matchup is likely going to be Luke Sipes and Lucas Capusta. That's a number 4 Capusta versus number 5 Sipes. Both these guys were 5th in the state last year. That's a big time matchup. And let's not forget, Marlowe has a win over Sipes this year. That was a long time ago, right? That was the first weekend out of the year. But that's how good this weight class is. And that's not even mentioning Dagan Condimiti, right? Who has, much like Belga, I mean, this is his last go, right? Just like his brother Jagger, there ain't no more chances. This is it. If you're going to win one, you got, and he didn't pick a good year to do it because Ty Waters is sitting there, but I would not be surprised to see him make it out to the semifinals, right? And give Waters all he can handle. But I just don't think Waters is, look what he did to Capusta in the finals of regionals. Look at what he did to Connor Harrer, who is just, I mean, one of the best pound for pound guys in the state, right? So
Yeah.
that's how good Ty Waters is.
And I think, the combination of being able to score as explosively as he scores, being offensive minded, but also being able to scramble out of everything. I think you see a lot of these guys who are scramble guys who want to try to turn everything into a scramble that are wrestling from a counter position a lot of the time. What's unique about Ty is that he does wrestle from an offensive position, but can get out of a lot of sticky situations. And I think that combination is rare. And the combination, frankly, style wise, matchup wise, it just works against everybody. And sometimes in a tournament like this, if you have that chameleon style to some extent, you can survive and advance a little easier than guys who are kind of stuck in one mode or another.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. And I look at just the style matchups, and you mentioned Griffin Gonzalez. I mean, let's not forget what happened with Griffin Gonzalez and Dagan Condomiti last year, right? And Griffin Gonzalez is coming in as the 4th place out of the South Central and was last year 7th in the state, right? He's going to need a similar run to make that happen, right? At the beginning of the year, if you had told me Luke Sipes and Griffin Gonzalez are going to be wrestling in the first round, I would say you're high, because they're both going to, they're not going to be meeting in the first round. But here we are, right?
Yeah.
It's the way that the cookie crumbles. I wouldn't look past so that quadrant there with Gonzalez, Hansberry, and Sipes, and then Brian Hurd and Lucas Capusta is probably one of the toughest quadrants there. I would also argue Sam Gautreau, Gabe Belga, Dagan Condomiti is also equally as tough. But I think that Capusta Hurd match, that's a 4 versus 7. Hurd is one of those quiet grinders from Abington Heights. He was a state qualifier last year. Has a couple good wins. Beat Borzio. He has beaten Aiden Swan. He's got some good wins, but I don't know if he's been tested like Capusta has. So I do like Capusta coming out from there. But Gonzalez Sipes, yep, sign me up for that one, the first round. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the areas where having that sort of pre-slotted ways of doing things, like this was an uncommon bracket at the District 3 South Central level. And Griffin Gonzalez, I don't think some of those guys were ideal matchups for him. Like Michael Dugan wasn't a good matchup for him, and neither was Gabe Belgan. They're two very different guys. So just the fact that he got 4th place in the region doesn't really speak to like Gonzalez being less capable of hitting the medal stand. I mean, he's still a really dangerous out, and he's going to be a kid, like he's committed to Lehigh. He's going to be a really good wrestler in the future too. So I think anytime you have one of those odd situations like this, where you have a state medalist coming from a pigtail, it has a chance to really disrupt everything in that particular quad. And I think this quad, it could go any number of ways when they wrestle it on Thursday.
I mean, you have a couple guys here, state medalists and pigtails. Kelly Keikos, right? Griffin Gonzalez. That's I mean, that shows you how deep this weight is, really. The parity here is so good, right? The top 15, the top 20 guys in the state here are all really good. And a lot of them are D1 commits. I mean, look at Tywars, Garvik, Condomiti, Capusta, Sipes, Daly, Hurd, Gautreau, Marlowe, Belga, Dugan, Gonzalez. Like, Gonzalez is a Lehigh commit. Tywars is going to West Virginia. Condomiti's going to Oregon State, right? I mean, it's just you got a lot of guys here with Division I written all over them, right? So a lot of people are going to be focused in on this one. I had a college coach tell me on Saturday, he said when he's watching Ty Waters, he says he's 3 steps ahead of everybody. And I thought that put it into really good perspective. I'm like, damn, you're right. Like he's just so methodical, but he's so far ahead. Like he is 3 steps ahead of you, right? And that's what makes him different and dangerous, and that's why I think he's going to win it. Let's go through. I know you didn't really have time to go through picks, but you're on the air now, so you're going to have to make picks here.
I will, yeah.
I got Ty Waters beating Keikos. I got Dugan beating Simmons. I've got Gautreau beating Belga. Condomiti beating Nate Jones. On the top half, I have Condomiti beating Gautreau. And I have Waters beating Dugan, Waters beating Condomiti. I have Sipes beating Gonzalez, Gonzalez beating Hansberry, obviously. I have Capusta beating Hurd. I have Capusta beating Sipes. That one I'm super not confident on. I'm not confident on a lot of these, but especially that one. I think that's a really good style matchup between those two. Daly and Borzio from Quakertown. I have Daly winning that. I have Garvik beating Marlowe, Garvik beating Daly, and Garvik beating Capusta. I'm not going to bet against the CD kid. Just not going to do it. Waters beating Garvik. Look, I didn't expect Garvik to make it to the state finals last year, and he wrestled Jared Kessler tough too. So
he did. Yeah,
I'm not going to count him out, man. He's silent.
funky stuff happens in his matches, and the funkier it gets, the more it favors him. So if he can kind of turn some of these matches into a little scramble fest, into something quirky, which he just kind of has a way of imprinting that on a match. And he does, you talked about this earlier, he does have a way of being easy to underestimate. Yeah, he just does. I tell this to Swaggart all the time. He just doesn't look like much when you look across the mat and see him, but he's like Gumby, and he's just kind of knows the sport so through and through that he just has a way of working through these weird situations and making weird situations happen. And I like that combination. So I do like him to get out of the bottom as well. I didn't hear much that I disagreed with. I mean, obviously there are hot spots here that can change. Like I think Luke Sipes has such tough matchups likely in the first round and in the quarterfinals. He's going to have a lot of work to do just to reach the semis. And like if Griffin Gonzalez makes it through there, I'm not surprised. If Kapusta makes it through there, I'm not surprised. If Daly upsets Ryan Garvik in the quarterfinals, I'm not surprised. And it's just the nature of this particular bracket where 2 through 11 and 12, like there just isn't a ton of separation there.
No, I mean they're all they're just all in that tier, right? And I agree with you. There's all these different guys that I feel like it's gonna be really fun to see how it shakes out, right? I mean, outside of the Ty Waters, I'm really excited to see how it all shakes out and seeing who, because like a guy like Griffin Gonzalez can get hot and end up top 4, right? Or a guy like Jake Daly can get going and end up top 3, right? Luke Sipes, same thing. I would not be surprised to see Luke Sipes in the finals. I would not be surprised to see Kapusta in the finals, Brian Hurd in the finals, Gonzalez in the finals, Jake Daly in the finals, Ryan Garvik in the finals. Hell, I'll throw Bodie Marlowe in there in the finals. Like, I mean, honestly, all those guys,
yeah,
I think they're all potentials, right? So,
and this weight class, like it's like the pigtail all stars. Like Kelly Keikos, I know he's got work to do in terms of being healthy, but like Parker Kearns is interesting for Mifflin County as a junior there. Griffin Gonzalez is a state medalist. Bodie Marlowe, wrestles like he can win a state medal for sure. So that can cause some disruption. And I think this weight class is very much ripe for disruption at multiple levels here. And I'm here for it, man. I think that's what the state tournament's all about. Is tearing up the chalk and tearing up the rankings and creating a little chaos. And I think 152 is going to deliver on that one.
I definitely agree. Speaking of, so did you make your picks?
I'm going Waters over Garvik. I'm still, it's just hard to pick against those two in particular. And what I saw from Ryan Garvik,
do you have Condomiti in the semi? Who do you have in the semifinals?
Condomiti over Gotro in the quarterfinals, and then Waters over Condomiti there. I like Dugan to get out of the first round and wrestle Waters in the quarters as well. And then I will, I as much as I want to pick a Griffin Gonzalez upset over Luke Sipes, I am going to go with Sipes there, and I think I'll go with Sipes in the quarters as well into the semis, and then Garvik over Jake Daly. Garvik over Marlowe, Garvik over Jake Daly, but that's back to back. Garvik's got to bring it, and I think I saw a more intense version of Ryan Garvik, a more engaged version of Ryan Garvik at the South Central Regional. I think he's going to be ready.
Yeah, I mean he Central often does that. They get their guys ready to rock and roll for Hershey. It doesn't hurt that they're right there, and I'm excited to see how 152 shakes out. And let's not forget, like, people don't talk about this a whole lot. Maybe you do, but Ryan Garvik's down a weight, right? I mean, that's got to play a little bit of a factor. He was a state runner-up at 160. Normally we see guys go up weights, not down weights.
And he's a lot to handle that way because he is pretty long and he's pretty fluid as far as how he moves. Like I think he looks pretty good at this weight.
Let's go up to that weight that we were just talking about, 160, Dustin, and boy, this is a really full weight class here, man. Someone asked me what's the toughest weight class. I mean, 39 is going to be probably the toughest weight class because of the sheer number of guys there. But man, 60 is loaded, right? Sean Taylor is your top seed here by virtue of winning the Southwest Regional. He was 4th in the state last year. On the bottom half, we have your boy Dom Frontino, who was 8th in the state last year. but a regional champion. He's on the bottom half. You have Andrew Harmon from Becca, who is a regional champion, but was a state qualifier last year, 7th the year prior to that. Bekru Sadarinov of Council Rock South was a South East regional champion. He was a state qualifier last year. So you have a lot of guys here like Harmon and Sadarinov that are trying to take that next step from being qualifiers to medalists, right? Guys like Sean Taylor and Dylan Evans just doing God's work and just going out there and wrestling really well. So let's talk about the top half here. So Sean Taylor at the top, I think he's got a pretty easy quad. I mean, I'm just going to throw that out there. I like Brett Barbush. I think he has wrestled really well after. I mean, last year he was a state qualifier, but I just don't feel like he was. I just feel like he took more losses last year than he probably should have. This year, I would say it's opposite. I feel like he's been wrestling really well. What was the final there in the South Central Regional between him and Frontino? Do you remember?
I think it was a 16-0 tech for Frontino.
That's what I thought too. I thought it was a tech.
It was very surprising to me.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be that large of a difference between those two, but I think that just kind of shows you where the depth is out of the South Central Regional, especially at 160. I do expect Barbush to beat Spindler from Pittston, but I think that's probably where that stops. I think Taylor ends up winning there. Beers and Butterfield is an interesting one to me. Beers is up, and he's very undersized for 160. He's a guy who probably can make 147, but Matt Repos is there, and then Ryan Garvik drops down, so he puts him up at 160. So he's kind of fat and happy, but he's wrestling really well. Comes in ranked number 11th in the state. Caleb Butterfield, a state qualifier a year ago, he's number 14. I like that first-round matchup a lot. I also think Sadarinov is in his quadrant there, is in really good shape. I think it's a pretty clear Sean Taylor and Sadarinov semifinal here. Would you disagree with that? Would you argue with that?
No, I would agree with that for sure. I like that matchup a lot because those guys are kind of opposites. Michael Beers, as you mentioned, when Brian Garwick decides to come down, he has no choice but to go up. But they did kind of talk about it, and this is a kid who has never been at a state tournament before. And the 160 weight class in the District 3 and South Central Regional level was a little bit more favorable in that department. And Garvik kind of felt like 152, because Ty Waters was so entrenched and was really the only guy entrenched there. He felt like 152 was a better shot to get to the finals rather than having to deal with either Sean Taylor or Dylan Evans. He knew one guy was going to be in the top, one guy was going to be in the bottom, and it complicates things in this weight class. So, but Michael Beers, a shot to win his first round matchup is good positioning for him. He just doesn't have enough to wrestle with with Beck Ruse or with Sean Taylor. And Sean Taylor's made such big leaps. I like him to win, whether it's Spindler or Barbush. I think that'll be a pretty good match in round one. I think Sean Taylor wins that quarterfinal pretty handily too. And that's no disrespect to those guys. I think Sean Taylor has just jumped levels big time, even since the end of last season when he placed fourth. So him and Becker's collision course there in the top half.
Yeah, I talking about jumps, I think Sadarinov has made jumps. We saw what he did in Fargo, but continued that out throughout. He still has a lot to prove. I mean, that's just a fact. He still has a lot to prove. Yeah, he won the Southeast Regional, but I still think he has a lot to prove, and I think he wants to have respect put on his name. And I think he needs to earn a medal here. And I think getting to the semifinals and having that clear path, I think that's going to help him solidify that. You look at the bottom half, Dustin, it's a little bit tougher. There's less clarity. Andrew Harmon, I'm a huge Andrew Harmon fan. I think Andrew Harmon has wrestled really well as of late, has wins over Condomiti, has win over Sadarinov himself. I just really think he's been peaking at the right time and just really looking good. I expect him to wrestle Jackson Towson, who I believe is going to beat Wetzel from Shikellamy. Dylan Evans here. I mean, Dylan Evans, he's going to Pitt. He's already got a state title. He has done it all, man. I mean, Fargo, Super 32, you name it. Like he's had success at, and he's going back and forth with Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor won the first two, and then Dylan Evans won, and then Sean Taylor won the last one. So these guys are back and forth. I definitely think they're on a collision course, but I wouldn't put it past Andrew Harmon to try to throw a wrench into that, right?
Yeah.
Dylan Evans and Josh Barlow, that's an okay matchup. You know, I like Josh Barlow. He's a state qualifier, and if you remember, he's wrestled Brian Garvick pretty tough. They wrestled the Mule Classic earlier this year. Kept it really close with him. Barlow comes in 10, Evans 2, so that's a top 10 matchup right out of the gate. I would like to see that one. Harmon and Evans is the one I really want to see. That's a 2 versus 4. I'm not saying Harmon's going to upset him, but I just think that he's going to cause problems to Evans, right?
It'll be a match. I mean, it'll absolutely be a match. And I don't know about you, but I do kind of just tend to lean toward the guy who's accomplished more in this arena at this tournament, won a state title last year. It's just hard to pick against the guy who's been there and done that in a match like that. So I can definitely see it being a 5-3, 5-4 kind of thing. Where I would pick Dylan Evans to beat Barlow and then to beat Harmon.
Yeah, and it says a lot about just peaking at the right time. And Dylan Evans last year, you know, he peaked at the right time. He came in and won a state title and just advanced. And I think he's going to do the same thing again this year. But on the bottom half, in addition to Harmon and Evans, 2 and 4, you have Dom Frontino, number 3. And let's not forget, Dom Frontino has a win over Sean Taylor. They've split. He lost to him at the Midwinter Mayhem, which is a really tight match. Dom Frontino has got to be in that conversation. I don't think you can look past that, right? And it's crazy to me to think Dom Frontino, he didn't have a great state tournament last year. He finished 8th. He lost to Griffin Gonzalez. I mean, yeah, he had a good tournament, but he didn't have a great tournament. You know.
The thing, you know, Frontino, his stock has really risen since last March, and the position he was in with a knee injury, he didn't start wrestling until January. He just wasn't quite what he is now in terms of mat time, off season, early season. So I think he's in a different place now, which is why you see him in national rankings and stuff like that, because he's made really good strides. At the same time, I do think he is still looking to prove that he is right on the exact same level as Dylan Evans and Sean Taylor. And he's got that win over Sean. I think Dylan Evans, I think, eliminated him from the super regional 2 years ago, the COVID year, and then beat him again last year. I think that's the way that it went. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But he's looking to prove that he's on that level. He's looking to prove that he's a state title contender, and I think that he is. It's just that those guys are so formidable, and it's hard to pick against those guys wrestling each other again, because it seems like fate has put them there.
Dylan Evans has done a lot of winning inside the Giant Center. He was 8th as a freshman, 4th as a sophomore, champion as a junior, right? And you are absolutely right. If you remember the West Regional, Evans beat him 5-3 to knock him out. Now, Evans last year beat him 10-3 at the state tournament in the quarterfinals. So that's kind of where I'm at with Dylan Evans. I think he knows how to wrestle and wrestle well inside the Giant Center. So the way I have it, and first round matches, I think we kind of touched on them. But I do think that Dylan Evans beats Josh Barlow. I think Harmon beats Townsend. I have Harmon and Evans winning that one. I have Pasco from Perkiomen Valley beating Gino Serafini from Central Mountain. I have Frontino beating Gavin Beck. Although that's kind of don't sleep on Gavin Beck. You know, the guy's just a grinder, right? He's lost to Frontino this year. I'm trying to remember what the final score was. That was at the Midwinter Mayhem. I know it was. I think it was a 7-1 win. So, I mean, I'm not going to sleep on Gavin Beck. I have Frontino beating Pasco. I have Evans beating Frontino. And on the top half, I have Taylor beating Rohan. I have Taylor beating Barbush. Beers beating Butterfield. Sadurinov into the semifinals. Taylor into the finals. I got Dylan Evans winning it this time. I think Dylan Evans finds a way to win. He was very close to Sean Taylor is so hard to score on. He's flexible. He plays the edge. He's strong. He's quick. I like him. But Dylan Evans, I think if he gets to a takedown, it's gonna be it. And he was this close. That last time that they wrestled, that last iteration. So again, he's been on the big. I give a lot of precedence to being in that moment previously. I'm a big believer in if you've been there before, you're more comfortable there before. He's been on that center stage. He's been on the Jumbotron. And I think that goes a long way. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I just think Sean Taylor's time is here, man. Like I think he's shown that. I think mathematically, if he's taken 3 out of 4 with Evans, I like him to go 4 out of 5, and I really like Dylan Evans too. I just think Sean Taylor just looks like a man on a mission to me. Like he's been here too, and while he didn't get what he wanted last year, it seems like he's burning a bit from like losing to Ryan Garvik last year and having that disrupt his plan to kind of make his way to the finals. I think he's a different guy, and I think that shows here. The only place I really deviate from you is I'm going to go with Sean Taylor over Dylan Evans.
Okay, well, you're allowed to deviate. That's why we're here. It'd be boring if we were all the same, right? You want to move up to 172? I think we've thoroughly examined 172 or 160. Yeah. I'm sorry, and I'm starting to see like multiple screens and my eyes are going bad. So
we'll move along. Move along.
172. What I'm not seeing double of is Rocco Welsh. Rocco Welsh is a dog. He's he's good. Rocco Welsh just he's a man amongst boys, I think. And Matt Furman is maybe his closest competition, and it's getting further and further apart, I feel like, a little bit. So on the top half, the best first round matchup of the top half is Terrell McFarland from Pottsville, who comes in ranked number 6, and Macon Myers of Central York, who comes in ranked Macon Myers is 5th, McFarland is 6th. McFarland's a freshman, big time freshman, had a lot of success at the freestyle level in cadets and youth age groups. He's been really, really solid. 20-2, so not a ton of matches under his belt. He had a late start to the year, kind of been in and out, but that's a can't miss first round matchup. I also like the Carter Weaveling and Blaze Aldi from Wilson. I think that's going to be a good first round matchup. Honestly, that bottom quadrant on the top half is wide open. I think Luke Thomas has a good shot to make it out to the semifinals there. Dustin, I'm not sure if you have anything different, but I think Luke Thomas is in a good position there.
Yeah, and sometimes wrestling a pigtail can be beneficial to the tendency of being nervous, to being tight, to starting slow, to getting that first match out of the way. Luke Thomas in that quadrant is the highest ranked guy that you've got there, right? So if Luke Thomas makes his way to the semis, it's not really even upsets. Blaze Idol from Wilson is a sophomore. He's got 50 wins this year, and he's a really good wrestler. I just think Luke Thomas, the senior, all these Becca guys, it's insane that they've got 8 and 9 losses, so many of them. And it speaks to the preparation that they put in here, the number of tournaments that they went to where most of these guys are positioned to probably lose twice. And I think, you saw that last year that Nazareth put their guys through the ringer too, and it ended up helping a lot of them. So I like Luke Thomas to make his way through. I'm going to go with Blaze Idol winning that first round. Thomas over McClellan, Thomas over Idol to get to the semis, and to I think the name at the top of that bracket is he's a real up and comer. He's a sleeper. I'm going to go with Rocco Welsh.
He's a dark horse. That Rocco Welsh guy, he's a dark horse. Yeah, I agree. Please
I love
that
McFarland Macon Myers match too. I think that could get any number of ways to a pretty good style clash. Like Macon Myers isn't really a freestyle looking guy. He's a grinder who's gotten so much better over the course of his career, especially last season to this season. And how does that match up his strength and folk style strength against McFarland, being a little bit more fluid? That'll be a fun one.
I agree with you. I think it's a good style matchup. Just unfortunate that the winner gets Rocco Welsh, but excuse me, you put yourself in a position to earn a medal, right? By winning that first opening round match, you're already in the quarterfinals, and you have a much better shot of wrestling back in the consies. I like Idol a lot. 50 wins. Like, I don't know if there's any wrestler. I'm gonna have to go through it, but I don't know if there's any other wrestler here with 50 wins. And all the research I've done over the last couple days, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody with 50 or more wins. That goes a long way for Idol. But I agree with you. Thomas, I think, is just – that's a 7 versus a 10, but I think I give the edge to Thomas there. I do think, the Southeast region at 172 is not very strong. Hayden McClellan from Conestoga is 38-1, but he's just not where anyone else is, right? He's not Luke Thomas, he's not Megan Myers, or he's not Terrell McFarland for that matter, on the top half. So I do expect Thomas to come out of that semifinal and with Welsh winning that one. On the bottom half, though, we're gonna have we might have a 2 versus 3 quarterfinal matchup and a rematch that went to sudden victory last time. Dom Wheatley of Nazareth and Matt Furman, number 2 and 3 in the state. Wheatley, Northeast Regional Champion. He beat Matt Furman at the team tournament 4-2 in sudden victory. That was a really good match down on mat number 4. I expect Wheatley to get there. I think he's probably going to have Bowder, but him and D'Angelo's kind of, I think, maybe I'll go with D'Angelo. I actually forgot to fill that one in. I'll say D'Angelo. Carlisle's been wrestling pretty tough. I have Furman beating Pascoe and Furman and Wheatley wrestling in the quarterfinals. Talon Hogan, I think, has been quietly getting better. He's a guy who was a top incoming freshman last year. He's now making his first state tournament. I like that first round matchup here. He comes in ranked number 14 in the state, where Orans from Mifflin County comes in ranked number 21. So I think that's a good matchup for Hogan. What do you think about Kevin Oliveria? Because, JP McCaskey just doesn't wrestle. They don't wrestle a ton of guys, right? So what are we to make of him? But he did beat Megan Myers pretty good, right?
Yeah. It proved a lot to me. Him beating Megan Myers in the South Central finals, I think it was 8-4 was the final. You knew Kevin Oliveria is kind of a freak athletically, and he's a long kid. And what I really wanted to see was, okay, how does he withstand the physicality that he was going to see against Megan Myers? And he handled it really, really well. He wasn't afraid to be physical there. And so that impressed me a lot and kind of showed, like, I know, McCaskey in 34-0, that number, undefeated record might not mean a ton. If you look at his schedule versus a Whippeal schedule, for example, but Oliveira is the real deal. Like, I think he is really, really good, and he is a real threat to get. Obviously, I think he's going to roll to the semifinals, but I don't think he's quite where Matt Furman and Dominic Wheatley are. So whoever wins that matchup. But man, I think he's going to give him a match in the semifinals. And I wouldn't sleep on him. I know he's ranked number 4, but I think the thinking is that he's way behind Matt Furman and Dominic Wheatley, and I don't think that's the case.
I don't think he. Maybe not smart people think that, but I certainly don't think he's way behind Matt Furman. If you go back and watch their match from Powerade last year, it was a Furman ended up pinning him, but it was a very competitive match up until that point. So I would encourage you to go back and watch that. And Oliveira has gotten better since then. He's done a lot of off-season wrestling. And I think you look at that, there's not a ton of first-round matches that stick out to me. I don't see a ton of matches that I'm like, oh man, this is a can't miss. I do think on the bottom half it's a little bit more top heavy with Wheatley, Furman, and Oliveria, and I agree with you. I think those three are kind of gonna glide into the quarters and semis. Well, let's go ahead and talk about our picks here. So on the top half, I have Tassos Whipple beating Mason Richards from Springford, and I have Myers beating McFarland. I have Idle getting number 51, win number 51. I have Luke Thomas beating Beckett and McClellan, and Thomas beating Idle. Welsh beating Myers, Welsh beating Thomas. I have Wheatley beating D'Angelo. I have Furman beating Pascoe. I have Furman avenging a loss to Wheatley. I have Hogan beating Orange of Mifflin County. I have Oliveria beating Mark Gray. Oliveria beating Hogan. I have Furman beating Oliveria. Welsh over Furman. So
I've got it the exact same way.
really, you think Furman's gonna take out
I
Wheatley
am
this time?
I am a big Matt Furman fan, and
Really?
I know Dominic Wheatley is having an outstanding year for Nazareth, and it's hard to bet against Nazareth guys, but I Furman's flair at Giant Center in this particular arena, and the way that he can kind of impose his style, which is funky and crazy and that kind of thing. I think he's going to do it too.
Interesting. Um, Oliveria and Furman. I mean, do you think that what you think he's? You think that's a close
I
one?
think Furman's I think Furman's better, but I think Oliveria makes it a good match. But
Okay.
I would pick Furman over Oliveria still.
All right. Very good. Let's go up to 189 pounds, shall we?
We shall.
We shall. Tucker Hogan, top seed here, 40-0, was state third last year. Currently ranked number 1 in the state. Hayden Packer, Rutgers recruit right here. Hayden Packer from Jersey Shore. So he's from Jersey Shore, which is in the middle. It's nowhere near the Jersey Shore, right? It's in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, kind of. He's going to Rutgers. It's just so ironic that the dude
That's
from
perfect.
Jersey Shore is going to Jersey, right? I digress. Hayden Packer is the second seed, also ranked at number 2 in the state, 32-1 on the season. Last year, he was third in the state in AA, okay? Also on the bottom half, you have Cole Bartram from Northern York, who's had a phenomenal season, was second in the region behind Tucker Hogan. I like that one. Giuliano Marion of Franklin Regional, a huge first-round matchup there. Both these guys were state medalists last year. Marion was 6th in the state. Bartram was 8th. And, Marion has had, he's had some bumps in the postseason, but I mean, 89 was a kind of a whirlwind at the Whitfield tournament, and he avenged the loss to Jake Conroy, but then loses to Vaughn Spencer, who's just been lights out this year. So that's a first-round matchup that you cannot miss. Also, on the top half, you have Vaughn Spencer, 27-0. I'm pretty sure he has like 20 tech falls and pins. And younger brother of Cole Spencer. Vaughn, I always want to call him a freshman because this is the first year we're seeing him. Vaughn came into high school as one of the top incoming freshmen, but was injured, had a football injury, kept him out the whole year. This year he's had concussions. He had some other injuries that he got a late start to the year, but since he's took the mat, he's been just completely out of control. And quite frankly, I like his chances of getting to the semifinals here, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to seeing from top to bottom in this one, and I'm pretty sure Cole Bartram beat Julian Marion once, maybe at King of the Mountain,
It was King of the Mountain,
which is where he's so weirdly like Cole Bartram from Northern burst onto the scene a bit at opening weekend last year by beating Noah Akamoto from Nazareth, and now this time around Akamoto beat him in opening weekend, and he's kind of gone on a tear since then. So I'm a big Cole Bartram fan. It's a tough road for him, having to go through Marion, having to go through Gasick from Parkland in all likelihood. But it's tough to bet against him. His final against Tucker Hogan last week was really good at the South Central Regional. Hogan gave up the first takedown, but ultimately kind of won the match on the mat, which I think is kind of where he makes hay there. But you look at Vaughn Spencer being undefeated, having to wrestle a veteran guy coming out of that pigtail will be an interesting dynamic for him. Hayden Packer, Jersey Shore to Jersey Shore. I would pick him to get through that pod at the bottom there. Tyler Withers is a pretty good pigtail wrestler himself. And he ended up just losing to Bartram at the South Central Regional. So this is a pretty good weight from top to bottom. But Tucker Hogan moves up to number 1 with Sonny Sasso moving up to 215, and I think he's going to represent that this weekend.
The interesting part that I look at is, you have 4, 5, 6 guys that are all kind of in the mix, right? The Bartram Hogan match, you had mentioned, Hogan gave up the first takedown, and he didn't look flustered. Would you agree in that? Like he kind of looked okay.
He doesn't fluster very easily.
No, he doesn't.
He's a pretty old soul for a junior kid. Like I don't mean any disrespect, but like talking to him, it sounds a little bit like talking to a grandfather or something.
He is. I love Tucker.
He's got a really, really level head about it. Like the same thing happened, and I think this is an interesting trend, I guess, to watch at the state tournament. Maybe you don't have the same type of margin, but he gave up the first takedown to Anthony Brashino in the quarterfinals from Cumberland Valley as well, and worked his way back from that. So I think a time's going to come, and maybe, with that extra time that these guys from the South Central region have, he would be able to work on that and start a little quicker and not put 2 points on the board for his opponent.
Yeah, I mean, I like the old soul analogy. He is. I like Tucker a lot. He's a cool kid. I really enjoy watching him wrestle, but also like talking to him off the mat. I would say he's. I don't want to say a clear, because there's no such thing as that. But he's got a nice shot to the semifinals. I would say. I think he's got a good chance of making it out to the semifinals. I like Warren from Whitehall as well. I think Warren from Whitehall is going to have a pretty good first round matchup with Tucker Teets from Sealands Grove. That to me is a good first round. That's a 14 versus 18. Warren has been wrestling Gasick tough these last few weeks, so I think he's a little bit more battle tested than maybe a Teets is, but that should be a really good first round matchup. We have some young talent here with Dean Bechtold, who by virtue of his brother going up to 215, he comes down to 189, and he had a phenomenal Southeast Regional tournament, ends up winning it there over some senior guys. So I like Dean Bechtold over Rocco Serafini, and Vaughn Spencer I think is going to get into the semifinals. Dustin. We lost you, Dustin. Gotta go hold the baby. All right. He's got to step away to hold the baby. Facts. I understand why you got to hold the baby. Dustin, I can do it all on my own anyways. I really like Vaughn Spencer to come out from that quadrant there. He has had a win over Bechtold when they were younger in the PJWs. I know it's a long time ago, and we shouldn't really take it too much into consideration. But the way Vaughn Spencer's been wrestling as of late, I think it's his match. And I think Caleb Marzalono from Abingdon Heights and Aiden Height should be a really good one. These are both guys. Aiden Height was a state qualifier last year. Marzolino himself has had some success. He was a state qualifier last year, but finished third in that Northeast region. So I think that's a really good first round matchup. On the bottom half, I think Adrian Gasick has a nice shot there on in that quadrant, but that quadrant is so deep. If you look at it in terms of the rankings, you have Gasick, who's number 8. You have Marion, who comes in as a state medalist last year. He comes in ranked number 7 in the state, and you have Cole Bartram, who was ranked 3rd in the state. So you have all these guys top 10. Bartram has that win over Marion, as Dustin and I talked about at the King of the Mountain tournament. So I think that is going to play into a factor here. I think Bartram ends up winning that one. I really think that winner from that quadrant has a good shot to make the semifinals. Brody Evans from Waynesburg is 28-11, but he's locked and loaded. He is number 5 in the state currently. He has wrestled really, really well, as of late, and that don't let that record scare you. He's had some good wins. He has a win over Serafini. He has a win over Conroy. Yeah, Brody Evans is definitely a guy I don't want to see across the mat. Him and Jake Allard from Conestoga, Conestoga should be a good one, but I do give the edge to Brody Evans there. Hayden Packer is the one that I kind of have circled as, what are we going to do with him? Because Hayden Packer comes in 32-1 on the season, has spent time up at 215, elects to come down to 189. And I think Hayden Packer is one of those guys where he doesn't get a ton of respect just because he is a football player, doesn't do a lot of the off-season wrestling stuff, right? And that sometimes, especially in the national rankings, people tend to look at those Super 32 results, and they look at things like Fargo, which I don't think is always fair, especially to a guy like Hayden Packer. For his season, Hayden Packer last year was 40-7. Okay, finished third in the state. His only loss this year is to a kid from Delaware, Max Agresti, who's an absolute stud. He's and that was when they was up at 215. Outside of that, he's got some really good wins. But he doesn't blow people away. He really doesn't blow people away. He kind of keeps it close with people. Beat Mason Rebuck 6-4. It's kind of a closer match than I think he had anticipated. But then he comes out and pins Tucker Teets in the first period to win a regional title. He has some matches where, like example, he beats Tucker Painter from Trinity, beat him 2-0. So he's somewhat tested, but not nearly as tested as some of these other guys are, like a Tucker Hogan, like even a Dean Bechtold, or a Brody Evans or a Cole Bartram. So I would not be surprised to see Bartram and Gasick winner and Marion winner make it to the finals. In fact, I have Bartram making it to the state finals, beating Packer in the semifinals. And if you look at Packer, again, floating between 189 and 215, yes, he's had some good results, but he's kept some matches pretty close. Grant Mathias from Berlin, that was a 1-0 decision that he had there. So I think just matchup style, I think Bartram, Gasick, or Marion will probably be a little bit of an issue for him. But I have Bartram over Packer. I have Tucker Hogan over Vaughn Spencer to make it to the finals, and I have Hogan over Bartram for the second time in 2 meetings that they've had. So you got to look into kind of common opponents here. Tucker Hogan beat Jake Guilfoyle from Bish McDevitt. I don't know if it was 9-0. It was a pretty significant win here. Jake Guilfoyle is ranked number 2 in the state in AA and is peaking pretty hard right now. The guys that I don't want to look past, Dean Bechtold as a freshman, again, just been really solid, has a lot of wins under his belt in 39-8 as just a freshman up at that weight. I don't think you can discount that. Jake Conroy from Ringgold, 40-4. He's a guy who's making his first trip to the state tournament, but I think he's been quietly getting better, right? And Ringgold, they don't necessarily see a ton of guys outside the state or outside of the WPIAL, but I think he's a guy who's going to cause some problems in the wrestlebacks. Sam Milligan, another guy I don't want to necessarily look. Hey, you're back, Dustin.
I do apologize. We have a sick and very upset baby here, so I had to go lend a hand.
I'm not that sick. I am a baby, but I'm not that sick.
You'll always be my baby, but.
Easy, Mariah. All right, I already just gave I felt like an idiot talking to myself, but I did it. 189 pounds. I got Tucker Hogan beating Vaughn Spencer, and Bartram I have beating Packer into the finals. What do you got here, Dustin?
I would agree with that. Like
you got Bartram over Marion and Gasick and Packer?
Yeah. I really like his level of tournament wrestling and the fact that, I think mentally he's made a gigantic leap from where he was as a sophomore. And he's just so physical, and he's such a bulldog. Like I really like that combination. I know that's a tough road, and I know that's probably an upset to have him winning both of those, but I'm completely with you on that one. I've seen a lot of him, and I've been impressed more and more. Even in that loss to Tucker Hogan, I thought he gave it a match. And maybe that's just me. It's just kind of wishful thinking to see them run that one back, because I would definitely like to see that.
You're manifesting it, as the kids will
Maybe
say.
I am.
You're manifesting it. Well, I'm manifesting 215 because we got to move on. It's after 11. I'm hungry. I'm tired. By the way, the tip jar is open. Just saying, if you enjoy listening to 6.5 hours of podcast, you can always give us a little tip because these things are free, right? Or other stuff maybe not so free, but tip your podcasters. 215 pounds, Sonny Sasso, returning state champion, undefeated, 23-0. A little bit of a shortened season after that thumb and wrist injury that he had, but he is your top seed. On the bottom half, you have Dylan Bechtold of Owen J. Roberts, number 2 in the state. He was 5th last year. Do you know what weight he was at last year, Dustin? If you get this, I'll send you some Pampers.
5th, let's say 160.
No, he was not 160. Not 160. You lose. You don't get his Pampers.
172?
Yeah. So if you look at the rest of the bottom half, Jose Garcia from JP McCaskey, this is kind of like that bias that we may have towards like Kevin Oliveira as well. Is that like, what is that 36-0 really? Is it, what does that mean, right? Jose Garcia, I feel like has been, people have not respected what he's done for a couple years now. I do like him, but I think he's got a really, really shit draw. I think he's going to have a hard time getting out to the finals here. If that's where he intends to go. I think Dylan Bechtold has, ever since moving up to 215 pounds from 189, he's been really, really solid. So what are some things that jump out at you, Dustin, at 215?
Yeah, I mean, Sonny Sasso went up really just to not screw over a teammate, right? That was kind of the thinking. I think I saw that.
I mean, that's what our horseman Tom Hausnick, who's no longer a horseman, said.
So good for him. Yeah, he's demoted himself. But one thing that jumps out is that Zach Evans Calvin Lackman matchup in the first round. I think that'll be interesting. Obviously Calvin Lackman is I think he's probably a good solid favorite in that one, but Zach Evans lost to Jose Garcia in the South Central Regional Finals, but he had Garcia on his back early, and that's something that element of unpredictability is something Evans brings to the table and kind of makes him dangerous in some of these matchups. So that one I think should be fun. I think Garcia has been battle tested, and I think he at that 36-0, there's some meat on that bone. Like he got an 8th place medal, even though I think he got 4th at the regional last year. So I think he kind of that experience at Giant Center should help him. Should go a long way. I like him to get to the semis in this one, but Dylan Bechtold, the work that he's doing at 215 since going up to 189. We talked about Cole Barcher from Northern at the 189 preview. He's the only guy who's beaten Dylan Bechtold. He's done it twice this year down at 189. And then Connor Jacobs too. So the winner of that matchup, which is what, a 2 versus 5, is going to be tough for Jose Garcia. And I like whoever does win that. I would pick Bechtold to win it too, just the way what things are going. Bechtold over Jose Garcia in that semifinal round to get to the finals. And then, I think everybody's kind of wrestling for a participation trophy in this one with Sonny Sasso at the top.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but I mean, anything's possible. I think Sonny Sasso is certainly, he's poised and ready to win another state title, but I don't know if Bechtold or, I don't know. I don't know if they're necessary participation trophies at this point. I will say this. Owen Ott is a stud. Okay. Owen Ott, Penn Trafford has had some really good results. Now that Magnus Bibla from Crestwood, I'm probably butchering that name, Bibla. He and his brother qualified for the state tournament. He was a state qualifier last year. I think that's a really good first round matchup. That's a number 9 versus number 13. I think, and I have it picked, I have Owen Ott making the semifinals. I haven't beaten Garcia.
Okay. I don't think I quite understood the level of threat from both of those guys on Jose Garcia. So I think at the very least that'll be a pretty good matchup between 6 and 9 or 6 and 13. Jose Garcia comes in at number 6 in the rankings. I think is a deserving guy. I like him. I think he gets to the semis, but with the quality of those guys, and even Connor Jacobs down below. Like I think the bottom half of the bracket has some real, as you would like to say, some real landmines to it.
It certainly has some landmines. I like Owen Ott has turned it on. Okay, Owen Ott's a guy who, at the beginning of the year, was losing matches that he probably shouldn't have lost. He got beat up by Connor Jacobs. He lost to Corey Borio a few times, and then all of a sudden he turned it on. Right, I would say it was the Midwinter Mayhem when he started wrestling out of his mind. Go back and watch on Rockfin PA Power's page his match in the finals against Austin Johnson. He lost 14-5, which is actually an accomplishment in itself that he lost to Austin Johnson 14-5. Watch the third period, okay? He rides him out, okay? He looked really, really good. That's where I think Garcia is going to be in a little bit of trouble. Ott has been he's just been wrestling really well. Lost Eli Makel, but beat Corey Borio for the second time. He's taking steps, right? So that's why I have Ott over Garcia. Connor Jacobs is a dog. I love Connor Jacobs. It's interesting because you have two guys at 215 pounds that were state medalists at 172 that are both up at 215, right? Him and Dylan Bechtold were both medalists at 172 last year. Jacobs was seventh in the state, and Bechtold was fifth. So I think that's, those two in itself meeting in the quarterfinals is just kind of destiny. Would you say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's the similar story there, and I don't know at what point Connor Jacobs, made that two-class leap, and that's a big two-class leap. 17 pounds difference between 72 and 89, and then 26 from 89 to 215. So that's not a small two-class leap. That's not 127 to 139. That's a big boy leap there. So I don't know where Dylan Bechtold is, in terms of what he weighs. I don't know how he looks at 215, if he's undersized or whatever, but so the ins and outs are tough. But yeah, to get a 2 versus 5 that early in the tournament, two guys who sort of have that same development journey, that should be a fun one. And I think the other quarterfinal just ahead of them with likely Jose Garcia versus Ott or Bibla is gonna be fun too. I mean, this is I think, and the same can be probably said about all of them. So I'm looking forward to that final 8 at 215 to see if there's any sparks that are going to fly.
You know what's interesting is we look at 215 and Cole Bartram's name always comes up. Connor Jacobs wrestled Cole Bartram twice last year at the state tournament. Lost to him in his first round in sudden victory. Bounces back all the way and then finishes 7th, beating Cole Bartram 6-2. Dylan Bechtold, on the other hand, wrestles Bartram twice this year, loses to him both times. Right, a lot of similar opponents there. Right, maybe that's why I'm picking Bartram to make the finals at 189, and I'm picking Bechtold to make the finals at 215 pounds. So, if you look at the bracket, I have Sasso beating Borio, 2 state medalists. Borio's a state medalist, finishing 6th last year. I have Lockman beating Evans. I think that's a really good matchup. Calvin is built like a brick shit house. I mean, he's put together. Right, he's number 3 in the state. Okay, I think he's going to beat Evans, but I think he's going to fall to Sasso for a 1-3 match there. I think Sasso's got a tough road. If you look at the road that he's going to have to take, he's going to have to beat Borio, state medalist, Lackman, a state qualifier, either Pardo or Makel or Kozer. I think those are all guys that are all state qualifiers. I have Pardo beating Rebuck. I have Makel beating Diesel Kozer. And I have Makel beating Pardo and Sasso beating Makel. On the bottom half, I have Garcia beating Domino. I have Garcia losing to Ott after Ott beats Bibla. I have Jacobs beating Peterson, Bechtold beating Conover, Bechtold beating Jacobs, Bechtold beating Ott, Sasso beating Bechtold. You heard it here first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm good with most of those. I like Garcia to get through to the semis. I like Makel to get to the semis as well. Sonny Sasso has a tough draw, but he's also pretty firmly the number 1 guy here. Like I know anything can happen. I know the participation trophy was not the
That was
best
a low.
way
You could have used
it
better
was.
term.
I think what I was just trying to say is everybody's kind of competing for second place, not a participation.
Well, then just say
trophy,
that. Don't belittle these
have.
kids.
Listen,
we're here for the kids. It's for
You're
the
here
kids.
for yourself, Upson, and you know it.
You've
been here for yourself for 6 hours now.
Yeah, but I definitely am here with myself instead of my kid, who I'm not going to see for 4 days, because I love wrestling that much. Sorry, I digress.
I mean, somebody's got to do the Lord's work, and you've been the chosen one. But yeah, I like your picks there. Lackman just a little too much for Evans. Sasso over Lackman. Sasso over Mako. I think Mako's has had a really good year.
Talk about wrestling guys like Austin Johnson. Mako wrestled him in the Powered Finals. Looked pretty good against him.
Yeah, 43-3 with the schedule that Waynesburg put ahead of him speaks to that. And it's just one of those things, like if Sonny Sasso is weighing in right now at, say, 195 pounds, I don't know where he is, but if that's what he weighs, Mako is a pretty hardy 215 from my vantage point. It can 15 or 20 pounds, if that ends up being the case, can that make any kind of difference for him? Can Eli Mako impose his will on the match and turn it into a lot of ties and upper body, like that kind of, can he turn it into a real 215 match? Is something I'm interested to see. I'm not picking that, but I think it's just one of those variables when you have a pretty undersized guy as the top dog. But Sasso over Mako, Garcia getting to the semis there, and Bechtold beating both Jacobs and Garcia, losing to Sonny Sasso in the final.
All right, let's go up to heavyweight, shall we?
We shall.
All right. Go ahead. You start us off here, Dustin. Start us off at 285.
Love Sean Kinney. Pretty clear-cut favorite to win this bracket. I'm really hopeful that we see a Nick Pavletsko, Leighton Schmick match in the semifinals down low. There's going to be a little bit of work to do there, but those are the number 2 and 3 guys in the state. Pavletsko, probably around that 235, 240 mark, where Leighton Schmick is a pretty good sized heavyweight who's also a very, very good athlete. So that's one area where I think Pavletsko has a technique advantage over Schmick. Schmick might want to kind of go big in that match. So I think if that one happens, I'm looking forward to it. Looking at the pigtails down low too, Avery Coons from Chambersburg is an interesting guy because he is enormous. And so if you have a small heavyweight in Pavletsko, a huge heavyweight in Avery Coons, there's obviously some possibility that gets opened up there that the weight's too much. I don't think that happens, but Pavletsko just kind of on another level. Really hoping to see that Leighton Schmick match there. Schmick is kind of finally is in a position to not just get here, but to win a medal as he goes. His one loss this year came to Joe Collins from Central Bucks East. I think he beat him once as well. So Joe Collins is a pretty good guy there. Ty Banco from Trinity. I mean, it feels like he's been around forever. You got him at number 4 in your rankings. He was a state qualifier 2 years ago. As you look at it, Sean Kinney, I expect him to roll through that assortment of guys up top, not because of the other guys aren't any good, but because Kinney is just he's just a pretty special dude. And I think whoever comes out of the bottom, I will pick Pavletsko over Leighton Schmick. I just don't see it being much of a matchup where Sean Kinney gets too uncomfortable as he gets to his second state title.
Yeah, I would agree with you on a lot of those. I will say for Schmick, he's going to have a very tough match with. It's going to be Schmick versus Schneck from Pine Richland. I do think Schneck will beat Bledsoe from Garnett Valley, and him and Schmick. That's too much Schmick for me. But
yeah,
that's a number.
It's a very phlegmy matchup.
Yeah, it's number 3 versus number 9. Schneck has had a really good season. Fully committed to wrestling. He was a football player for Pine Richland. Schmick has just been knocking. I mean, you kind of mentioned it like Banco. This is his 3rd trip to Hershey. He's never been a medalist. I think his time is now, right? I think his time is now.
It feels like it.
I like Nikolai Brotzman from Donegal. I really think he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on. A guy who's never really done a lot in his career, but has a win over Schindel, Bailey Schindel from Kennett, who was second or third out of the Southeast region. Looking at the top half, I have Brotsman beating Kearns. I have Sean Kinney beating Kreider. I have Ty Banco beating Gallagher. I have Collins beating Aiden Black. Although Aiden Black and Michael Hershey is a pretty good that's a pretty good first round matchup. Aiden Black was a state qualifier last year. Hershey is number 10 in the state, so I do have a little bit of an upset, so to speak, with Black winning that one. I have Collins winning that. I have Banco making it to the semifinals. You look at what he did in the finals against Joe Enoch of Penn Trafford, who's himself a house. Banco is he's good. I really like Ty Banco. I have Schmick beating Schneck. And then you throw in Schindel. That's way too much. Schindel, Schmeck, and Schneck.
This is the most disappointing pod in terms of the thoughtlessness of lining up all these names.
Yeah, I have Schindel beating Brennan. The best first round matchup by far, in my opinion, which my opinion is really the only one that matters. Ben Faribault of Strathaven, who's number 6 in the state. I really like him. He was a state qualifier last year. And Joe Enoch of Penn Trafford, who himself has just a flowing mullet. I mean, the thing's incredible. He's number 8 in the state. I like that matchup a lot, 6 versus 8. But I agree with you. I think Pavlechko is going to pretty much roll. I think he's going to roll against Schmick, or Schindel too. I do think Pavlechko is the guy here on the bottom half. I think the tiers are Kinney, Pavlechko. So that's one tier. Pavlechko is another tier. And then I think you have another tier of Schmick, Banco, Collins, Schneck, Faribault, Brotsman, all in that one. I'd even throw in Ian Winchester, who's not here. So
yeah. And that tier has a lot of names on it. And I think, as you mentioned, Kinney a cut above, Pavlechko a cut above too. I'm just kind of beware the big move against a guy like Leighton Schmick, who doesn't really have an athleticism deficit to Pavlechko, but Pavlechko is he's just so good and so technical, and it's going to be hard for a guy like Leighton Schmick, who does have, I don't know about if lapses is the best way to put it, but does need to improve the consistency, I think, in order to beat a guy like Pavlechko. So yeah, Pavlechko getting to the finals over Schmick in that semifinal, and then Sean Kinney beating Pavlechko in the final.
Who do you have on the top half? Kinney versus who in the?
I would go Kinney Banco too.
Oh, you got Banco too. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like Joe Collins, but I think Banco just with the way that he's been battle tested, wrestling that schedule for Trinity, and seeing some of the guys that he's seen already this year, I think there's a lot to that 38-3 record. I like him to get through there too.
Banco really impressed me when he beat Aiden Compton from Notre Dame at the Powerade tournament. So his 3 losses this year, one is the Gunnar Singleton from Huntington, who we know is pretty tough. He also lost to Jimmy Mullen, one of the top guys. At one time was the top ranked guy in the nation, and Nick Pavlechko got pinned by him. But outside of that, he's done. He can grind out wins, and he's been on a fall streak. He has not had a decision since beating Joe Schneck back on January 28th, 3-1. The rest have been pins, and pins, all pins.
You're putting a lot of yourself into the pronunciation of these SH and SCH names.
Listen, bro, it's 11:30 on a Tuesday. I've been podcasting for 6.5, probably going on 7 hours now. Cut me some damn slack, Dustin. Cut me some damn slack.
Time.
Listen, the tip jar is open.
Survived.
Please. Tip jar is open.
And to be clear, the tip jar, it goes to Jeff.
1,000%. It goes to my babies to put diapers on my babies.
Yeah.
Although we just got a raise in policing, so that's cool. It's the first time in like 20 years we got a raise in Pittsburgh police, so I'm pretty pumped about that.
So are you gonna fold up shop on PA Power because you got not only
a wise man. All conventional wisdom says yes, do that. Just do your Pittsburgh police job. Don't do all your other jobs, and just like you can retire in 8 years. You can have a good pension. You can have good health care. And just work 40 hours a week, just that, and be a father and husband the other times. That's all conventional wisdom points to that. But instead, here I am on a Tuesday night and about to go away from my kid for a week to cover high school wrestling.
Yeah,
it ain't for the money, I can tell you that. But
7 hours talking about high school wrestling before, like the calm before the storm is all high school wrestling, and I'm in the same boat. Like it's state championship week.
Yeah.
You tend to doing this job, you tend to limp into Thursday, and you really limp into Saturday. Like you really are running on fumes trying to make sense of what you're seeing.
People don't understand that.
Sucks.
You know how many people are like, hey man, let's go get a beer. Like I have friends in Harrisburg that I haven't seen, like wrestling teammates of mine that I haven't seen in years or months that I want to see. And like, oh man, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm limping into Thursday. And then, oh, by the way, I don't do a AA and AAA. Like, oh, I'm only at one or the other. I'm at both all day.
Yep.
We're closing that shit down.
It's
by
a
Sunday.
marathon,
By Sunday, I am done. I'm done. And then I get to turn around and go to Nationals, Tulsa.
Yeah. And
why the hell we're going to Tulsa? But
also,
me and Carper, my boy Carper, Boiling Spring Bubbler is going to Nationals with PA Power.
Oh man,
I tell you that?
I didn't know that. No, I did not know that.
Oh,
breaking news here. He's good, man. He's good. He's got a good feel for this stuff, and he was a pretty good little wrestler for the Bubblers.
Yes, he was. I'm a big Carper fan. I always get him and his brother confused, though. I do feel bad. Like I sometimes call him Coben. Yeah, it's like, no, I'm Caden. I'm like, okay, well, at least you could have like had a different K. Like double K, Caden, Carper.
Special K.
Special K, yeah. Speaking of, all right, so we got Kenny. I got Kenny and Pavlechko in the finals. Kenny winning that. I think we're pretty clear on that. Listen, We've got a lot of podcasting. We got a lot of content coming out on PA Power Wrestling on Rockfin, so stay with us throughout the whole week here. There's no other place to go other than PA Power Wrestling if you want coverage of the Pennsylvania Wrestling State Tournament. I just don't understand why you would go anywhere else. We have it all here.
Stop scolding people, Jeff.
Rankings.
Listen, idiots.
I'm not. All right.
You're
that's
right,
a good
though.
time to sign
right.
off. But seriously, Dustin, appreciate you late night podcasting with me, even with a baby in tow that you got to hold. Looking forward to seeing you at the Giant Center on Thursday.
It'll be joyous. I'm looking forward to it. We'll both be barely awake on Thursday and borderline dead on Saturday. But here's the golden rule about people in our position. Nobody cares how we feel.
Nobody cares. Work
and that's okay.
harder.
That's fine. I wouldn't care either.
I would. If it was easy, everyone would do it, Dustin.
That's right, man.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. You appreciate you tuning in. For anybody who actually tuned in to all 4 shows, I think I owe you something. Like if you get a free subscription or you get like a t-shirt or socks or something, like if you listen to all 4 shows, I definitely need to give you something because you deserve it. Yeah.
You do.
So, all right. Yeah. We'll see you all on Thursday at the Giant Center. But until then, check out PA Power Wrestling on Rockfin. We got a ton of content coming your way. Thanks for tuning in. For Dustin Hawkinsmith, I am Jeff Upson. We'll see you here very shortly.